Maple Creek was a town that thrived on quiet lives and whispered legends. People went about their days contentedly, hardly sparing a thought to the old rumors that told of a hidden treasure lost somewhere in the hills outside town. For most, it was a bedtime story. But for three friends, the legend was a mystery waiting to be unraveled. Andrew, Tom, and Kevin had been friends since high school. All three were in their early 30s, with simple jobs that paid the bills but left them wanting a bit more adventure. Growing up, they'd always been captivated by the legend of John McAllister, a miner who had supposedly discovered a stash of gold in the hills back in the 1800s. The story went that he hid it away and left clues across the landscape, with the idea of one day returning to retrieve it. But John McAllister never came back, and the gold was never found. The friends had laughed about it many times over the years. They'd read articles, even checked out books on local history, and occasionally gone hiking near Maple Creek, hoping to spot something unusual. But it wasn't until they found an old journal hidden in Andrew's grandfather's attic that they thought there might be any truth to the tale. The journal was weathered and fragile, with yellowed pages filled with sketches of the hills and notes that were half faded. But in the back of the journal, scrawled in blocky letters, was a sentence that made their hearts race. "The fortune lies where the sun kisses the hilltops and the river bends like a shepherd's crook." The trio studied the journal that night over coffee in Andrew's garage, which doubled as their hangout spot. "What do you think it means?" Kevin asked, running his hand through his hair. "The river and the hilltops could be anywhere around here." "Yeah, but look here," Andrew replied, pointing to a small sketch on one of the pages. "This looks like a map. See this circle? It's not marked, but it could be where McAllister hid the treasure." Tom's eyes lit up as he leaned closer. If that's the case, this could be the closest anyone has come to actually finding the gold in over 100 years. They spent hours analyzing the journal and making notes. By the end of the night, they had a plan. The next morning, they would head out to the hills, following the landmarks in the journal, hoping it would lead them to the hidden stash. The sun was just beginning to rise as they drove up the dirt road that led into the hills. The car was filled with an excited energy, mixed with a hint of disbelief. Could this really be happening? Could they actually find John McAllister's lost fortune? They parked at the base of the hills and started hiking, armed with a backpack filled with supplies, including water, flashlights, ropes, and, of course, the journal. As they moved deeper into the wilderness, the path grew rougher, with thick trees and brush blocking their way. After a few hours, they stopped for a break near a river. They checked the map again, comparing the landmarks with the terrain around them. "If we're reading this right," Tom said, studying the river's curve, "then we're close. Look, the river bends just like a shepherd's crook here, right where the journal says." They pressed on, following the river until they reached a clearing with a stunning view of the hills. The sun was high now, casting shadows across the landscape. Andrew checked the journal again. "The sun kisses the hilltops," he muttered. "Maybe it's referring to this time of day, when the sun's angle shows where we're supposed to go." He scanned the area, his gaze falling on a small hill in the distance. "There," he said, pointing. "That hill over there looks like the spot. It's isolated, and from here, it catches the sun just right." The three men pushed onward, excitement building with each step. The climb was steeper than they'd expected, and the brush was thick, making every step a struggle. But they were determined. They'd come too far to turn back now. When they finally reached the top of the hill, they were breathless but thrilled. Kevin looked around, his eyes searching the ground. Now what? The journal doesn't say exactly where to dig. "Hold on," Tom said, scanning the area. "Look at those rocks over there. They're arranged too neatly to be natural." The rocks were piled in a small circle, and as they approached, they saw an old iron ring protruding from the center. It was nearly buried beneath layers of dirt and moss, but it was unmistakable. "Think this is it?" Kevin whispered, his voice full of awe. Andrew knelt down, tugging on the ring. At first, it didn't budge, but with the others' help, they managed to pull it free. Slowly, they lifted a heavy stone slab, revealing a dark opening beneath. Kevin shined a flashlight into the hole, revealing a set of wooden steps leading down into the earth. They exchanged nervous glances before, one by one, they descended into the darkness. The air inside was cold and damp, and their flashlights cast long shadows on the walls. The steps ended in a small chamber where a wooden chest lay against the far wall. It looked ancient, with carvings etched into the wood and metal clasps that had rusted over time. With trembling hands, Tom reached down and opened the chest. Inside were bags of what appeared to be gold coins, as well as small boxes filled with precious stones. They were speechless, their minds struggling to process what they were seeing. "We actually found it," Andrew whispered, barely able to believe it. "The lost fortune of Maple Creek." They sat there for a moment, letting the reality sink in. It felt surreal, like a dream. They had uncovered something that had been hidden for generations, something people had whispered about for over a century. "We need to take some of this with us," Tom said, his voice filled with awe. "But we should be smart about it. If people find out we've been here, it could ruin everything. This treasure belongs to history, to the town." They carefully took a few gold coins and gemstones, enough to remember their find, but not enough to draw too much attention. They sealed the chest and covered the entrance as best they could, hoping it would remain hidden from prying eyes. As they hiked back down the hill, they couldn't stop talking about their adventure. It was something they would carry with them for the rest of their lives, a shared secret that bound them even closer together. Back at the garage, they gathered around the small treasure they had taken, feeling a deep sense of pride. They'd achieved something remarkable, something they'd only ever dreamed about. Andrew looked at his friends, a grin spreading across his face. This is just the beginning. Who knows what other secrets are out there waiting to be discovered? They laughed, already thinking of the next adventure. For now, they had a story they would tell for years to come, a story of friendship, mystery, and a forgotten fortune. Maple Creek was still the same quiet town, but now, to Andrew, Tom, and Kevin, it was a place of endless possibility, filled with secrets waiting to be uncovered. They didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. They'd face it together, ready for whatever mysteries lay ahead. No one thought much about the old Henderson library on Main Street. It was dusty, outdated, and mostly deserted. People only used it to find old records or grab an occasional book on local history. However, to Frank, Sam, and Billy, three close friends in their late 20s, the library was more than just a building filled with forgotten stories. It was a place shrouded in mystery. Frank was the planner, always curious and deeply interested in riddles and codes. Sam, with a sharp eye and even sharper memory, was the historian of the group, while Billy was the skeptic, always quick to question things, but always intrigued by an adventure. One late afternoon, the three friends were visiting Henderson Library, searching for resources on a project they were working on about the town's past. While rummaging through the dusty archives, Frank noticed a peculiar book tucked in the corner of an old shelf. The book's cover was leather-bound and worn, with faded gold letters reading, "The Code of Henderson." "Hey guys, look at this!" Frank called out, waving the book. Billy raised an eyebrow. "Another one of your ancient books?" "No, it's not just any book," Frank replied, opening the cover and showing them the first page. Inside was a carefully drawn map of the town, and at the bottom of the page, a note read, "Follow the map, decode the symbols, and discover the truth hidden beneath." Sam's eyes lit up with excitement. "Do you think this could be a treasure map?" Billy scoffed, but a hint of curiosity glimmered in his eyes. "Oh, come on. It's probably just a prank or some old library project, but I guess we could take a look." Frank eagerly flipped through the pages. "The book is full of riddles and clues, and look, The map has markings on specific locations around town. They quickly decided that the adventure was worth pursuing. Grabbing a few supplies, they left the library, ready to see where the mysterious code would lead them. The first marked location on the map was the old clock tower near the town center. The structure had been there since the 1800s, and despite some repairs over the years, it looked as though it could crumble any day. As they reached the clock tower, Sam noticed an engraving on one of the lower bricks, a series of symbols they'd never seen before. Frank pulled out the book and flipped to a page showing similar symbols. These look like codes from the book. It says that each symbol represents a letter. They spent the next hour deciphering the symbols, slowly piecing together a message. Finally, the sentence they revealed read, "Face the tower at noon. The shadow points your next path." Billy chuckled, rolling his eyes. A shadow pointing to the next clue? This sounds like something from a movie. But all right, let's try it. They decided to return the next day at noon, just as the instructions said. The following day, at precisely noon, the three friends stood before the clock tower, waiting for the shadow to reveal their next clue. As the clock struck 12, the tower cast a shadow toward an alley between two old buildings. At the end of the alley, a small hidden door stood partially open. "Let's check it out," Frank said, leading the way. The door opened into a narrow hallway that led to a small room filled with dusty crates and old artifacts. As they explored the room, Billy noticed a chest in the corner with another symbol carved into it, matching one from the book. "Look at this!" Billy exclaimed, pointing at the chest. They carefully opened it, revealing a faded scroll with more symbols and a note that read, "The code continues in the halls of echoes." Frank scratched his head. The halls of echoes? What could that mean? Sam pondered for a moment. Wait a second. What about the old opera house downtown? They used to call it the Halls of Echoes because of its acoustics. It was a long shot, but the trio decided to head to the abandoned opera house, hoping it would yield more answers. When they arrived, the opera house was just as eerie as they'd imagined. Dust floated through beams of light filtering in from cracked windows, and the air was filled with an unsettling silence. Carefully, they searched the area, eventually finding a small staircase that led to a hidden balcony overlooking the stage. On the balcony wall, they found yet another set of symbols, along with a cryptic message. "In the place where water lies still, find the stone of secrets." Frank's face lit up as he pieced it together. The pond in the town park. It's the only body of water in Maple Creek that's always calm, no matter the season. Billy shook his head in disbelief. This code has us running all over town, but I have to admit, it's intriguing. As they left the opera house, they talked excitedly, wondering what the stone of secrets could be. The pond was serene when they arrived, surrounded by trees whose branches hung low over the water. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow across the surface. "Now we just have to find this stone," Sam said, scanning the area. After a few minutes, Billy noticed a rock near the water's edge, partially hidden beneath a patch of moss. Carved into it was the same symbol they'd seen before. "Over here!" he called out. They crouched down, brushing the moss away to reveal another clue, this time written clearly in English. "The final key lies where the sun rests and the stars rise. Seek the tallest tree in the field of dreams." Frank frowned. The field of dreams. Could that be the old baseball field? "Yes, that's where everyone used to gather in the summer. It's the tallest tree in town," Sam replied. As dusk settled, they hurried to the baseball field on the outskirts of Maple Creek. The baseball field was quiet as they arrived, shadows stretching across the empty bleachers and the worn diamond. In the far corner of the field stood an ancient oak tree, towering over the landscape. It was the tallest tree in the area, unmistakably the one they were searching for. They approached it, finding a small metal box hidden between its roots. Frank carefully pulled it out and opened it, revealing an aged, leather-bound notebook inside. The first page bore the title, The Legacy of Henderson. Curious, they flipped through the pages, finding not treasure but detailed records of the town's history. It included secrets about forgotten events, the lives of people who had built the town, and the hidden stories of Henderson Library itself. The final entry revealed the book's purpose. John Henderson, the town's founder, had created this elaborate mystery to pass down the town's legacy, so its history wouldn't be forgotten. "He never wanted us to find gold," Sam whispered. "He wanted us to find the heart of the town." Billy chuckled softly, a newfound respect in his voice. "I guess we got more than we bargained for. This whole thing was a treasure hunt for the town's soul." Frank nodded, feeling a sense of pride as he carefully closed the notebook. They hadn't uncovered gold or jewels, but something far more valuable: knowledge, connection, and a deeper understanding of the place they called home. As they walked away, the friends knew that, in some way, they had brought Henderson's legacy to life once more. Maple Creek would never be just a sleepy town to them again. They would carry the town's stories with them, ensuring they'd never be forgotten.